With Ken Burns doing his big documentary series on national parks, America's Best Idea, we began to look at our own great outdoors. And while we don't have soaring mountains or glaciers or geysers, we do have plenty of natural wonders. And one of them is the Current River. As a scenic riverways, it is part of the national park system. And the river is one of our most valued, one of our most used, and these days, one of our most talked about parks. It was a misty morning when we canoed on the Current River and explored the land around it. It is a clear and cool river fed by one of the most extensive systems of natural springs you will find anywhere in the country. This is one of them, the appropriately named Blue Spring, a massive flow of cold water emerging from underground and pouring into the river. There weren't a lot of people in the park. This was the middle of the week. And those who've only come for summer weekend float trips may have never seen the Current River this empty and this quiet. Still, the place was full of life. The Current River, along with the Jack's Fork, is the centerpiece of the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. It is a great place. That almost everyone agrees on. What they don't necessarily agree on is great for what, and to what extent.
We have one in June.
And that's what the National Park Service is trying to figure out. They're developing a new general management plan. The one they use now is 25 years old.
It's time now. Things have changed. Visitation patterns have changed. Some of the recreational kinds of activities are different. More people, and so it's time to take a look at that.
Park Superintendent Reed Dietrich and Public Information Officer Elisa Kuntz met us at another one of the park's popular attractions, Big Spring. And they told us it will take several years to complete the new general management plan. They've put out some options, they asked for reactions, and they're getting them.
Well, we have really two messages that we're getting. One is that there's a concern that we're closing things off and not letting people do the things that they have always traditionally done. And then another spectrum of our stakeholders feels that we're allowing people to do too much and opening too much up and developing too much. So again, that balance, a balancing act that the general management plan is going to give us the potential for is going to be really critical.
The Scenic Riverways was established to protect it as a natural and a recreation area, and there have been restrictions here since the park was dedicated in 1971. The new planning process is trying to deal with numbers of people and activities, what you can do and where you can do it. Size and use of outboard motors, that's a big issue. So is the location and use of backcountry horse trails. Another role the park has is to preserve the heritage and the history of the Ozarks. Before the tourists and the Park Service and the conservationists came, the lives of the people who lived around here were tied to this land and this water. They cut down the trees of the Ozark forests and sent them to sawmills, and they still do. They also still make railroad ties from Ozark trees. They just don't float them down the rivers to railroad towns anymore.
I'm going to angle over to the right a little bit. Here's a cane stand, the native bamboo that I was talking about. And historically, those grew in what were termed cane breaks. They were sometimes massively
Kurt
large.
Homeyer knows that history. He grew up around here. His father and great-grandfather were loggers. And he's a conservationist.
I've been working for the Nature Conservancy in the Ozarks for almost 9 years. I grew up on the Current River, though. When I was 16 years old, I started fishing the upper reaches and spent all my time down here. So.
Everybody keeps talking about how special this river is. Well, from your standpoint, what makes it a special river?
From a science perspective, it's unparalleled. It's got 35 high-priority species, 25 of which either have their best populations anywhere in the world or found nowhere else in the world. So it's, from that perspective, it's extremely important.
To effectively deal with protecting the river, you've got to look at what's going on in the land it flows through, including the land beyond the park boundaries but still in the current river watershed. There are a lot of privately owned farms and forests, and of course there are towns like Eminence, the county seat, and the float trip capital. People in this area depend on the same resources the conservationists are trying to protect, and part of Homeyer's job is to work with them.
It can be a tricky relationship. You know, in the tourism industry, the timber industry are really the lifebloods of the local economy, and you have to take that into account when you're working on land and water protection. You want to find a way that it can be done sustainably, that you can still have income potential from the land, but find a way to do it that's in harmony and still protect the qualities that make this so special.
He has to know it by heart.
In addition to private land ownership, there is in the Ozarks Park Service land, National Forest, Missouri Department of Conservation land, and acreage owned by conservation groups. The Nature Conservancy buys up land all over the world to protect and restore it, and it owns this piece of forest just above the current river. It's the kind of place botanists like Doug Ladd get really excited about.
I thought I knew the Ozarks, but when we did the discipline planning about what are the most important places in the Ozarks from a biological point of view, from a conservation standpoint, the current river far and away blows any other part of the Ozarks off the map.
They have done controlled burning of these woods to kill off invasive species, and are now doing a very detailed study of the resulting diversity of plants on the forest floor.
7 species. We have Sarcema, Persimmon.
The crew is made up of mostly college students. They're census takers of a sort, identifying and counting the plants in square plots which are located by tags on the trees. And they have to know their stuff. There are some 800 plant species here. They also have to like the woods, obviously, and be a bit careful. They may run across the occasional rattlesnake. But what they are doing, over and over and over again, is much more than a summer job.
We started this in 1996. We anticipate this will go for at least 100 years. It's going to transcend all our careers, and we're always going to be building on the data sets and learning as we go.
The Missouri Department of Conservation is also doing extensive studies on land use and management and impact, and the Park Service has its own section within the riverways set aside for limited use and extensive study, because the current river is more than just the water we float on.
The current river totally depends on these woodlands and those hills there, because all the water in the current river comes from rain that falls in this watershed and sinks into the ground. A lot of it emerges in underground springs and little discharges. The health of these uplands determines the health of the river.
Well, currently we're standing in our Civilian Conservation Corps Historic District.
Balancing conservation and recreation does have a long history here. Big Spring became a popular state park in the 1920s. And during the Depression, needy young men were given jobs here as they were all over the country in the Civilian Conservation Corps. They lived in camps, they planted trees, worked on erosion control, built roads. They even quarried stone that they would then use to build shelters and facilities that would be used by future generations. They are still being used here at Big Spring, the lodge for dining, and cabins which are rented out to overnight visitors. All of this is designated as a historic district within the park. Some people come back here year after year, but plenty of others haven't discovered it yet. I'm thinking this is one of your favorite spots.
Actually, it is. There's nothing like, honestly, a really nice Sunday morning brunch to come over and you can sit and just watch everything go by.
There is so much to see and do and appreciate in the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. That's a blessing, and it's a challenge. Those in the Park Service who are developing the new general management plan have to take into consideration a lot of strong and sometimes competing points of view. And that process is far from over.
It's going to take, it'll probably be, I don't want to pick a date, but it's going to take us a good 3 or 4 years before we get anywhere near completion on this thing.